Hi guys, welcome to the Coaching Corner. Feels like ages since I've done one of these. I almost said the Improvement Season podcast, and I don't think we've ever had this trio before. In fact, me and Pascal normally are on here with two other coaches, but this is me, Pascal, and Jess. And there's a reason why we've done it this way is because we're going to be reflecting a lot on Vegas, Worlds. For those who don't know, Jess competed in Bikini, amateur, at the WNBF, and she came in the top 3. In fact, she came 3rd, which I guess actually it's one of those, like, people say I came top 5, and they're always the person that came 5th. Like, no offense, like, it's like the way it always goes. If you came 3rd, you're not going to say I came in the top 5. You're going to say like I came 3rd. Anyway, besides the point, I don't know why I'm rambling. Jess did incredibly well, and we spent some time together after the show as well, in Vegas, and that was kind of our recovery period as well as like a holiday, and it was a lot of fun, and both me and Jess learned a ton about ourselves. I've spoken enough or a lot about my experience there, but Jess also had her own experience, which I think would be great to have. So maybe I'll hand it straight over to Jess and ask, how are you now? Give us like an update, maybe kind of a quick summary of where you were post-show, how you felt about all of that, and then kind of where you are now, and then we'll probably kind of try and delve into some bits there. Hopefully that was not too terrible of a passover.
I'm going to do my best to follow up on that. So we are 3 weeks, I think 3 weeks, almost a month. That's crazy. It went by so fast. We're almost a month post-show because it was the 20th of November. So yeah, nearly 4 months post-show. And I'm feeling great, not fully physiologically recovered, but psychologically, I feel much better. The week I left for Vegas, I was 53 kilos and I weighed in at 55 kilos this morning, which is just 2 kilos up in like, nearly 4 weeks. And I think it's even a bit slower than I wanted it to be. Maybe I'm unconsciously being a little bit too cautious, like keeping a little bit more cardio than I wanted to. But yeah, feeling much better. Obviously, my abs faded as quick as not as quick as they came, but yeah, my abs were the first one to go, which is why I don't encourage people to, care too much about how they look post-show, because that is not sustainable and it's going to go really, really quick. Like, I feel like after a week in Vegas, they were already gone, because when I left for Florida a week post-show, my abs were already faded. So yeah, it's just a matter of where you carry your body fat, what's your personal body fat distribution. I connected with a lot of girls throughout World and even at the WNBF UK, and they kept mentioning, oh, I see this girl and she still has abs, but she puts back like a lot of body fat on her glutes, so she looks like she has incredible ratios. And I'm like, don't compare yourself to her, because she doesn't have the same genetics. She doesn't have the same, like, maybe experience. And yeah, it's just a mental mindfuck. You don't need to compare yourself. So I know for myself that my glutes will be probably coming back quick as well, which is good, because it's going to be good to see some shape and some curves and not just being fucking not skinny, but stringy anymore. And my delts have already like blown back up, which is fantastic. So yeah, my abs are gone, but I'm feeling so much better. Hunger, fullness cues are coming back. It was better, I think, when I came back from the US, because I was eating quite a lot. And now that I'm just starting on my massing calories or like a small surplus, I can notice a little bit of hunger still throughout the day. Whether that's physiological, my body just trying to push up the body fat levels, that's probably what it is, or maybe a little bit harder training or keeping a little bit too high steps in cardio. So I'm trying to down on that. But psychologically, it's a transition that you have to go through. So being a month post show, I'm very happy where I'm sitting at. I've had no binges, nothing, like no not even like a loss of control. I don't even pick up food at my house or something like that. So it's been a fantastic experience, especially considering that in 2019, I handled it well, but I wanted to stay as lean as possible. So it wasn't like the best physiologically speaking. And last year I did the same. I never had issues with binges though, so it would be unfair for me to say that I would struggle with binges because I've never really struggled with it before. But I've definitely tried to stay too lean the past 2 seasons. So this season, being able to push it a bit faster and loosen up a little bit post-show was really good. But I think being all together in Vegas and encouraging each other to just eat a bit more. And then in Florida, I really wanted to try all the food there. So it was easy. But again, I was very conscious of my hunger and fullness cues. I wasn't like making myself sick. So yeah, it's been, it's my third proper cutting phase, and it took me 3 trials to get there, so it's never going to be perfect. So if anything, like if people need to take something away from that, is like dieting is a skill and it does get better over time, and recovering from a diet gets better as you go as well. So you'll find the things that work for you and don't work for you, and yeah, it's a trial and error approach. And as a coach, like you want to do your best to navigate that period for your clients as best as you can. But again, because everybody is so you have to individualize everything. It's going to take some trial and error. It's never going to be perfect.
I know, Pascal, you've had a number of clients, like you've tried to help them through this phase, and people deal with it differently. And I've had it before, thankfully not for a while, where people have just a client has ghosted you. They almost feel embarrassed because they haven't been able to control it. And it's okay. I don't know if maybe at the time, that was a few years ago, I didn't emphasize that enough, but sometimes it's strange to me. It's like, I don't know, people feel like they can disappoint a coach, or it's like, you can't do that. Like, I'm trying to just help you the best way possible. But I know you've had that sort of experience with people, haven't you, Pascal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not an easy time for many people dealing with that, especially because of the things that Jess mentioned, that it is a skill after all. When I do look back at my first cutting phases, the period after a cut were always challenging, but also because the cut itself was not as organized or not well structured enough, right? I've always tried to squeeze in too many palatable things, ate way too voluminous, which then caused some issues after the cutting phase as well. And it's so funny because now that I said palatable stuff, you always then come up with kind of tricks and hacks and using replacements for then sweets. And then you were looking up some kind of low calorie recipes, and you're abusing those things to an extent that just makes it overall way more challenging, right? Because there's a typical misconception that something like sweeteners cause then the body to actually want more sweets, which is inherently wrong. It's not that you are eating sweeteners and then the body is just kind of sending out a response to actually want to eat more. However, when you are in a dieted state, it is a palatable response that you're then responding to. And many people are actually not dealing well with that. Right? That no matter what it is that they are then eating, if it's then highly palatable for that individual, they are running into issues. Right? And this is also where I'm then coming from with saying I wish that more people would eat more like a pro, because that would do many, many people well. And when they are then also taking a look at post-show periods, or taking a look at your Instagram profiles and seeing just the one meal where you guys are then eating highly palatable things, they think that the entire diet consists of that, or that they should be able to do this. And then they are failing, they are binging their face off, and they are wondering why? Why the fuck could I control myself? And that it just ends up in kind of a vicious cycle where they are trying even harder, but that doesn't even lead to a fruitful outcome. So I don't even know where I wanted to go with this, but yeah, a lot of people are struggling with that due to many, many reasons. But there are or there is, in my opinion, from what I've seen with myself and also a vast majority of people, there are a lot of similar indicators and similar behaviors that lead to binging behavior.
Do you want to go say what those are?
Yeah, so typical ones are the things about palatable foods, not eating well enough, thinking that you can or that you're ready for something when in reality you aren't, underestimating the physiological response and situation that you're in, thinking that you can outsmart the body when it's in reality is like tens of thousands of evolution that are inside of you, and trying to actually outsmart it is basically a fool's errand. Eating like a pig, in the sense of like also there squeezing in highly palatable things, not being patient enough. And whenever I'm saying like eat like an adult, this is what I'm talking about. Being patient, taking your time to actually then recover. You've dieted for maybe like 6 months or so, sometimes even longer, sometimes a little bit shorter, but you lost double-digit amounts of your total amount of weight. So you assume that the moment that you stop the cut, that you're back to normal, that your physiological and psychological state is as it was when you are entering the cutting phase? Absolutely not. Don't even try to be that ignorant, right? Take the time, be patient, right? And that is, these are some of the typical things, and there are many, many more. And for those, I would then just recommend going over to our member site and checking out the presentation that I did around binge eating, because like 90% of the time, whenever I'm dealing with individuals that are having that binge eating behaviors, I can refer them back to that presentation, because they will always find themselves in there, because it's also then something like justifying their behavior, justifying certain actions in the future, right? Thinking that it's a good idea. In reality, though, you know that it's not, right? Things like these.
I think one thing I'd also mention on what you're saying here is trust your coach, because you mentioned kind of they're looking at other people, comparing themselves, and they're like, I should be doing this, should be doing that. Whereas actually the person who knows you best is your coach, and they probably have a very good kind of route for you to go down. And if you're then like, I don't know, you're trying to convince yourself, you're like, oh, but coach, look at this person, he's on like, I don't know, this many calories, or this person. It's like, but your coach knows you, and they should be able to guide you the best, especially here at Revive Stronger. Like we have very personal coaching. We check in every week, so we know the individual well. So sometimes they think they know themselves better at that point. It's like, you're just trying to, most people are trying to get an excuse to eat more. You get it in peak weeks where they're like, give me, like, I think I can handle more carbs. Like, more carbs today. And I'm like, sorry, I know you're hungry, but the physique doesn't need this.
The funny thing is, or the irony in it is, that they are hiring you so that they have someone to be accountable for, someone they can rely on, someone who guides them. And then the only person that they are not listening to, some people, I'm not actually generalizing here, some people, is you, the person that they are paying and actually keeping them accountable and keeping them on track. And you're the only one that they are not listening to. They are then listening to kind of friends even, right? People on the internet who give out like one recommendation that is completely out of context, that is not even applicable to them, but they twist and turn it. Also, they are justifying it, justifying their behavior and turning it around so that they had a specific reason or particular reason as to do certain behavior. And it's kind of, therein lies the irony, right? It's unfortunate, but sometimes that's the case. And I think that whenever you're going into something like a cutting phase or prolonged cut, never ever lie to yourself. This is one of the biggest recommendations that I can give to anyone, no matter whether you have a coach by your side or you're doing it on your own. Never ever lie to yourself. And I've seen it too often, that there are then justifications, specific reasons to be brought up only to not take full-on responsibility for their own actions, or maybe not give themselves an even harder time. But I think confronting yourself with the actual issue is most of the time the way to salvation.
I don't know if Jess has anything to add, but I did want to flip. If you do, and then I want to hear you reflect upon coming third at Worlds, because sometimes I think back to myself coming second, and I think I just like walked past it. I don't know. I didn't smell the roses, but I feel like maybe, I don't know if you feel like you've done that, but I definitely want to take some time here for you to reflect upon your season, the accomplishments, because I think you did well to come third at Worlds. Like, you have to have done incredibly well. So I definitely want to hear some reflections.
Yeah, I'll just go back on the bit before for 5 seconds, and then we can dive into that, because I'm happy to. First thing, don't ditch your coach right after your season has ended, because you're going to need them. Second thing, don't compare yourself or don't follow what people say on social media, because remember, they show you only what they want you to see most of the time, especially if they have a large following, if they're influencers of any kind. So yeah, that. And third, your coach, we are not there to judge you. We are there to help. And more often than not, we've been there before, so we know what it feels like and we can relate. So, and that's what I said to all my clients. I have people like, oh, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, or like, I didn't feel like I could. And I'm like, that's the first thing I say when I have a consultation with a client. This is a safe space to share. This is an open, like, partnership. I want you to feel comfortable talking about like bowel movements and period and like everything that impacts your daily life, because everything is going to be kind of relating to bodybuilding in one way or the other. So, you know, if you're constipated, if you have bad PMS, I'm like, hey, this is terms like we can use, and this is something we can discuss if it affects your like stress levels, your hunger, your like whatever it is. So yeah, just those little 3 bits were important. Back to Worlds. Yeah, I feel like I haven't really processed things completely, if that makes sense. So that's probably what you were mentioning. It went by so fast. Like, I feel like I waited all day, because obviously Bikini go always last when it comes to bodybuilding shows. So everybody went on stage. Either Christy, our common friend who was there, she went on stage in the morning. And then you went on stage in the afternoon. Dirk went on stage in the afternoon. So I was there just waiting and waiting and waiting. And like, when people were on stage, I was getting my coat of tan, or I was getting my hair makeup done. So I felt like I wasn't really there with you guys all day. And just the length of the day, like, that was a very long waited time. Like, by the time I went on stage, Christy and Matt already had like a burger, like they went out for food and everything. They came back to see me, and I'm like, I'm still there starving and I'm tired and I just want this to be done. That's the unfortunate bit about being a bikini athlete, is like you always go last. And on that specific show at Worlds, like, amateur went last on the afternoon as well. So I was the very last of the very last. And because I'm in tall category, I was like literally the last one on stage. So it was a long ass day. So when I went on stage, I had fun, but I feel like I had more fun at the WNBF UK. But that was probably due to, the length of the show, and just, we were rushed backstage because, as you mentioned in the other podcast, like they had a magician show right after. So we had to literally leave. So as soon as I got off of stage with my trophy, we had to like grab everything, and they were packing backstage already. So we had no time to like chat or anything. It was just like get out.
I mean, to be fair though, we needed to rush at the WNBF UK as well. That's
true, but that was like not the same.
That's true.
We just wanted to catch a train that we never ended up catching. So it was a bit rushed for sure, and we only had like 3 poses on stage for our individual routine. We were 10 in my category, so pretty big category, which I was happy with for once, because first, I had a tall category, so I could compare myself with taller people, because every show that I've done until now, which was the WNBF in France and WNBF UK, I was with shorter people. When you are 5'7", I'm 5'7", which I'm not a giraffe, but like I'm in the taller, like I'm a taller female. So when I'm on stage, obviously my distribution in terms of muscle mass, in terms of like body composition in general, it stands out because I'm very stringy, I'm very lengthy, and with the heels on, it's even worse. So I feel like it was good to fairly compare myself to people who were more looking like me. So that was a cool thing. And yeah, ended up third. And as the judges told us afterwards, like between me and the second one, it was pretty much nothing. So it was just a game of like maybe a point or two. And I definitely think my posing was better than the second, going back on the footage. The first, she came first and she totally deserved it. She had the best posing. She had the best physique. So on this note, I'm like, yeah, she deserved to win. But the second and me, like she had more muscle mass. I was leaner. I had better posing. Like, you know, it's like whatever the judges want to see and whatever, like, that's why, again, bodybuilding, like don't get too caught up in the placings, because it's so, it's what word am I looking for? Subjective. Thank you. It's so subjective anyways, but yeah, it was my best physique to date. It was a long ass prep. I started dieting on January 3rd, and Worlds were on November 20th. So that was more than 11 months of prep. I lost 12 kilos, which is huge, which is like more than 25 pounds. And yeah, it was a whole like experience. It was better than before. And I know that what's coming after will be even better than that. And if anything, it was long, it was hard, but the people are going to make jokes about what I just said. But
long and hard, huh?
But it was another way for me to learn, collect data, and just get better, and getting into my improvement season, knowing what I had to actually improve upon. And that was the whole goal this season: get really lean, get feedback from the judges, and get back to work, because I really enjoyed competing. I enjoyed prep. I enjoyed it more than before. And I know that it'll get better and better as we do it again. So yeah, now it's just time to grow, time to recover. But I'm very excited. Like it was a really good season. It was never going to be perfect, but no prep is ever going to be perfect. You're always going to have things that are going to be thrown at you. Like I had my ADD diagnosis, and then I had the trial with the medication that didn't ended up working. I had a surgery in April. And as you mentioned in our last check-in, because if people don't know, I'm flying solo for my off-season, which, fun fact, everybody thought I was leaving Revive. I got a ton of messages like, are you leaving Revive stronger? And I'm like, hell no, like I want to be there forever. Like you guys are going to get tired of me before I actually leave. And people thought that because I was flying solo for my off season, it meant that I wasn't working with you guys anymore. And I'm like, no, like I'm still a coach for Revive. I'm just flying solo in terms of coaching. But yeah, where was I going with this?
You're reflecting upon all the things that made your prep especially challenging, like the surgery.
And as you mentioned in my last check-in, you offered me like a few ways out, and I just kept pushing, like, yeah. I'm going through with this shit. Like it's been like 2019 wasn't my year because we learned, and it was my first prep. 2020 we had COVID, and then I ended up doing the photo shoot, and I'm like, no, I'm going all the way through this year, whatever happens. And yeah, obviously it wasn't perfect, but I've learned a lot, and I'm excited for the future. And now we know that we're going to be probably prepping again all together, which is going to be fucking exciting. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but anyways, it's going to be cool. I'm excited for that. Whether it's 2023, 2024, it leaves us time to grow.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger member site. Inside, you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews, and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description.
I think that it just speaks for you and speaks for how much you wanted it, that you actually pushed through it. Of course, sometimes there are things that may not be as severe as other times that then cause you to actually end up prep, right? Sometimes you're able to push through it, sometimes you aren't. But this time you just wanted it. And I think that it just speaks for you that you're not just seeing this as a cope out or just a reason for you to drop out. Steve always likes to ask the guests over on the podcast of like, what were your biggest takeaways from this prep? And that is something that I would like to hear as well.
Yeah. First, I am able of way more than I thought I could do. And that was the probably biggest takeaway. And second is you can find enjoyment even in the hard days because they're still going to be rewarding. And I would say third, it's a lot of gratitude and being present because the days in prep, days are going to suck. You're going to be hungry, you're going to be tired, you're going to still have to do whatever you have to do. So you're still going to have to work, you're still going to have to train, do cardio. Don't come negative into those things and just, be grateful that you get to do it because first you choose to prep. And also it's always going to happen regardless you have a negative or a positive outlook on it. So if you get into the treadmill to do 45 minutes of cardio and you're just already hating it, it's not going to get better. But if you get on the treadmill and you're like, hey, I'm going to take those 45 minutes to watch a comedy on Netflix because it's going to make the time pass by much faster, or it's going to be much more entertaining, or you want to take the 45 minutes to watch a vlog that's inspiring for you, or you want to watch a presentation to learn, there are always going to be ways to make it better. You just have to find them. And I think that was probably the biggest takeaway because prep, not going to be fun every day, but it's really a mindset approach and just trying to make things as best as you can. And that comes obviously that's for everything. That's not just for prep, but I found it very applicable for prep as well.
Yeah, I think this really hits home. And I always like to say, if you can't see yourself pushing through the hard days, then you're not ready for it, right? Because the lovely days, the easy days, these aren't the ones that define you or that matter, to be honest. Right? You are first being tested and challenged when there is a true challenge in front of you. Right? And if you then can't really push through it, then that's all right. Maybe it wasn't the right time for it. You don't have to beat yourself up about it. Or maybe you come to the realization that you simply don't want it hard enough. And I know this always sounds a little bit like hardcore mentality, but there are just certain things in life where we imagine the outcome to be way more lovely than it is. And we can just see ourselves at the outcome, but we can't see ourselves pushing through it and enjoying the journey. All right, and I think that I've talked about it in the past, and this is also what Mark Manson, the guy from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, same story here, and I was able to identify so much with it when he said that when he got into playing the guitar, he always imagined to be the rock star, playing big gigs in front of lots of people. That was me when I was young. I loved it. I loved stepping on the stage and playing in front of people and stuff like that. But I hated touring. I hated sitting in the car for 8 hours. Hated it on those days where we needed to actually just lie on the floor because we didn't really have the money for any kind of hotel room. We didn't get any kind of compensation. And I hated that kind of stuff. Yes, looking back, it was still a good experience. But you even then need to somewhat, even though it sucks, still be like, it was kind of cool, right? And that also then applies to other things in life as well. And if you can't see yourself pushing through those things, probably it's not for you, and that's all right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shame around people dropping out of prep, but I'm like, it's much better to drop sooner because you realize that it's not meant for you rather than just keep going because it's going to get worse and worse. And there are a lot of reasons you can drop out of prep that are completely valid. And yeah, you don't even have to explain yourself. Like, it's okay to just end prep. One other thing I wanted to mention, it's the connections and the time you guys or us guys shared together, whether it was at the WNBF UK or the people I met at the WNBF Friends show, and obviously in Vegas, which was probably one of the best vacations in week of my life. I feel like all of that was just making prep so much better, and the experience, because we got to share that together. And that was probably the most amazing bit. Obviously, it's just the people you meet and the time you spend with them, and the connection, and just, you know, obviously we all love bodybuilding, but just realizing after Worlds, like when we all went out together and just like went to the Grand Canyon and things like that, just realizing that there's more to bodybuilding as well. And we do identify ourselves with bodybuilding, but there's more to that, and just sharing all those things together and sharing food. And yeah, that was incredible.
I think
I'll let the word to Steve now.
I was just going to say, particularly Worlds, but the WNBF UK as well, but more so Worlds, I got a real appreciation for what we're doing as Revive Stronger. Like with the podcast, with the information that we put out, like people coming up and just saying like I like a lot of them I had never interacted with them. Some of them I had, but just coming up and being like that the podcast, like I'm here because of the podcast, for example, like comments like that. I joked to Brandon Kempter that I'm making my life so much harder as a bodybuilder, like putting out great information through all these amazing guests we get to have on and sharing that and kind of somewhat sharing the journey. But that was so rewarding, because I do see, at least for myself, like in my dreams, I'm like, people look up to me because I'm this amazing athlete, but I know it's because of what we're doing as a company and the information that we're putting out and the content we're providing, and like the growth of like helping natural bodybuilding grow and doing it in a healthy, sustainable way. And knowing that, like, I don't know, none of us here are like, we never went and did our first show and just won it, you know. We're not just set up and we didn't come out and we weren't born bodybuilders, but we all find it to really promote like good things in our life, and we all are slightly different. And it's great to know that we can help more people get into the sport that way and not feel like, I don't know, they try it and they don't do super well, so they just give up. It's like, well, no, if you really enjoy this thing, you can pursue it. And if you pursue it for a long, long time, you can still get to a relatively high level, enjoy the process and all of that. So yeah, I definitely took that away from it. And like, that's why I really wanted to get to Worlds, and I said it because I knew there was going to be a bunch of like friends and people there to just go and meet and hang out with. And it's such a small little niche. And that's why I think the holiday period afterwards, where we got to hang out with like as a crew of bodybuilders plus Cameron, was really fun, because yeah, we got to have some really good chats, but do kind of normal human things alongside. But everyone had their own little kind of, I guess we understand one another's quirks and needs to talk about certain things or do certain things with their food or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's just, I fell back in love with not that I fell out of love, but I fell back in love with the sport this season. I think we all kind of did for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was one comment on the last Improvement Season podcast, and she was basically asking, why are you so obsessed with actually then bodybuilding or focused on your physique? And to me, at least, I have the feeling that many people, when they are starting with bodybuilding and optimizing their physique, this is the sole purpose and the only reason why they're doing something. It's not because they are thinking like, okay, bodybuilding will teach me more patience, work ethic, will let me get to know other people who are into that as well. The sole reason is most of the time to actually then look better. But I have the feeling that with the years that you put in, it becomes less and less of an important factor. And why it is that you're pursuing that? Sure, it will always be there. It's kind of like the rooftop, right? Well, like the fundament. See, basically you can spin it around as you like. But it isn't that you're just focused on that one the entire time. Bodybuilding has given me so freaking much in all aspects of life. It has made me way more of a critical thinker. I think even way more intellectual than I would have ever become because I was then curious to learn about certain things, and then it had taught me kind of interpreting scientific evidence or scientific papers, looking into scientific evidence, staying really critical, also putting in the work and effort, all these kind of things. And then it really also brings back to what you guys have talked about, like the community aspect. And I like to be in my own small circle and bubble, but I also do enjoy the time that we then had, for example, at the WNBF, meeting people there, maybe having a positive impact on people as well. All these kind of things, right? Make then the obsession or the focus on working on your physique move into the background. Sure, it is always that you are focused on, because that is bodybuilding after all, but it isn't that all-encompassing thing where nothing else is there. It's kind of a room, a big room. And the first one who's going into that room is focusing on optimizing your body, right? Or the body composition. And then, like 1 minute later, patience is coming into the room. 2 minutes later, community is stepping into that room as well, right? And then at some point, there are hundreds of people in that room, which then fills up the room and makes it into bodybuilding overall. And that's at least what it has become for me. It has such a huge positive impact on my life that I have a hard time putting it into words. It's not just about obsessing about physique or focusing on the physique, but this is also the drive behind continuing doing so, but the other aspects are actually fueling that as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling Steve in Vegas. I think that you guys are both pretty, not like totally introverted, but not maybe as a social butterfly as I get to be sometimes. And I think that's why I enjoy being there as well, to just push kind of the limits of that and just make sure that we gather and we do stuff together and that we get to know each other. Because most people think, like, obviously we're a team and we do spend time together, but like Pascal lives in Germany, Steve lives in the UK, I live in France, Harry and Ryan lives respectively in the UK and in the US. So like we're never all together at the same place at the same time. Like it happens rarely. So being able to connect on a deeper level and like getting more friendly and just understanding that it's not all about bodybuilding, to have us grow as a team as well. Like that was so important for me as well, on top of meeting everybody else.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Yeah, I think I particularly enjoyed that kind of second portion of the trip, because although I think I'm introverted because I just don't have this style of like type of people around us as much. But also if you put me into too big of a group, I will just go into my shell. So it's quite nice having a small little group like that. And I think I get that every time we do seminars as Revive Stronger. It brings like this community back together, and I get like a boost of energy and motivation from that, because like you're like reminded that there's actually a lot of people in this community that love it and they really want to learn. So yeah, hopefully, I mean, we have actually, we'll talk after this, won't we? But we have some plans in the works for something later, mid next year, so people can be excited for that. So hopefully that all goes smoothly. But yeah, the community aspect, and I think it's like any other like sport, it's like people don't appreciate that element of it, but when you have that human connection, it's super important. And I think like the trophies, the rewards, the placings, they're all great, but if it was shrouded by hating the sport, then I mean, you're not going to stick at it long. I think I just had a podcast with Mike, and he was saying how Flex Lewis said how he hated bodybuilding. Like apparently it's like in a Flex magazine where he was just like, I hated it. It's like, man, imagine how good he would have been if he loved us, that thing.
And he was already the best for years on end.
Maybe he'd have won Mr. Olympia. So, Jess, what are the plans for moving forward? You mentioned 2023, 2024. I don't think any of us have like a date set in mind. It was only I mentioned on my story today, just basically speaking to Brandon and how he had like a 2-year, like every 2 years he goes again. And I'd always kind of thought like longer is better as a natural athlete. And I think certainly you need at least, I mean, a year I don't even think is really enough for someone who's still in their kind of newer years. But 2 years, that interested me, and with him being like, it makes sure you stay on it. And I'm like, I could see that. I could see how that makes you stay on it. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, what are your kind of plans in this off season?
Grow my glutes and my delts. I want ridiculously big shoulders, ridiculously big glutes, and a little bit of quads wouldn't hurt because my legs are so long that it could help just to pack some width on my quads. But yeah, shoulders, glutes, just more bikini features, and just making sure that I'm going to deal with my imbalance that I have because I had surgery on my left elbow nerve, ulnar nerve. So making sure that I get to actually grow back the muscles that I left on my left side, so it's more balanced. And just a few pain, and not pain, but like niggles that you get after like overuse and a long time dieting where you can't recover properly. So for now, recovering, getting my period back, because this is also the reality of prep for females. I haven't had a period in months. So getting my period is going to be probably the most important right now, because it's going to be the metric of how my health is going, getting my period back. So that's the most important for me now. It's my health. And that's what I mentioned on my story and even in a post. The dedication and the discipline with which you do prep, you have to forward that and carry on with it, the same discipline and focus on your recovery, because the positive outcome of your off season is going to depend on how recovered you are post show. If you don't recover, if you want to stay too lean, if physiologically you're not fully recovered, your off season isn't going to be as optimal. So if you want to grow optimally, you need to recover. So for me now, the goal before even thinking about like being massive, it's recovering physiologically and fully recovered, focus on something else, like the business aspects of things, so I can grow that as well. And then obviously bodybuilding is always going to happen. I'm always going to be like training and everything. So that's more going through the motion. And I still put intent in my sessions, but it's more like a background thing right now. If anything, I still enjoy it. I enjoy training. I enjoy, I count my macros. I'm back on track, but it's in the back burner for now, just to recover properly and focus on other things. But yeah, I still enjoy training, and even in my shitty commercial gym with very little equipment, I still make like things work. But yeah, just growing until I'm happy with how I look, until I'm not too... Sorry, I thought I lost you guys, but I didn't.
Yeah. We're just not moving.
Until I am happy with how I look and the muscle mass that I have, and obviously not getting too fat, because it's a fine line between like you need to gain weight and be uncomfortable and I'm too fat to start prep now. I want to be in a good position when I start prep. So next time I'll probably do like a cleanup phase before the diet properly, and then once that is done, just heading to prep. But yeah, 2022, definitely not going to be in a deficit. I've been in a deficit for fucking 3 years, nearly chronically. So it is time for me to eat, enjoy food, getting sick of food. I actually want to get sick of food for the first time in my life. And when I get there, I'll be like, okay, now I'm ready to
this shit.
I'm ready to prep again.
I have the feeling though, because that really speaks to me, Jess. I was dieting for a very, very long time because I was very obese as a teen, and I was always having then kind of fear of getting fat again, right? And that's why I was kind of chronically always kind of cutting, especially ever since I got into lifting. And that never really helped for then prolonged cutting phases. And the first kind of 2 times when I actually allowed myself to stay away from a caloric deficit, eat well, right? Well in the sense of like also still having vegetables, wholesome meals, all that kind of stuff, you're then getting to a point where you are actually then kind of well fed all the time, in the sense of like, I could see myself now cutting, and I'm more and more under the opinion that you should get to that point before you are considering a prolonged cutting phase. Yeah, and this is once again where then experience comes into play, because these cuts then afterwards have been so far a freaking breeze. So easy. And I know what it's like in the past to try to cut, be way fatter than I actually was when I entered those cutting phases, and still struggling.
Yeah, and that's why I'm excited for the future, because I know that the last 3 cutting phases that I've done, I've learned and it got better, but I know that next time I'm starting one, it's going to be from a much better position. So I know it's going to be, yeah, I'm excited for that.
And then I wanted to also hear about potentially like lifestyle, life goals, because I think as bodybuilders, we sometimes push those to the side, but I think they're equally as important, especially as you have more energy for those, or more time and energy, because you're not doing so much freaking posing, vacuums, monitoring your sodium fluids, all this shit.
Yeah, I'm very excited for whatever is to come for me, because after World in Vegas, we spent a week in Vegas all together with friends. Steve was there. And when they flew back to the UK, I flew to Florida by myself, and I rented a camper van and I lived and traveled Florida in it for a week. And it taught me a shit ton about myself. I did a lot of introspection, a lot of like work on myself, a lot of journaling, and I was very excited to buy my own van, convert it, and live in it full time so I can manage to travel and work at the same time, because those are the 2 things that are most important for me as far as values and identities. I love traveling and meeting people, connecting, and even just be by myself, and traveling is okay for me. And I love bodybuilding. So my life goal right now is to save money, buy a van, convert it, travel, live in it full time. So that is very exciting, and it's probably going to take a few months until I buy the van, and because it's expensive, and convert it, but I have the help of my family. But that is the goal for me, is to manage to do bodybuilding and traveling all at the same time, and be able to visit gyms everywhere in the world. And yeah, that's just the freedom for me, the freedom aspect. Like, I don't care how much money I make, as long as I can sustain that lifestyle. As long as I can, have a roof over my head. Well, in this case, it's going to be a van, but as long as I can live comfortably in that, and have, spare money, obviously, to invest a little for my retirement, just to make sure that I got this covered, then I'm happy with that. I don't need to be stupidly rich. I just want to be at ease with my finances so I can enjoy this lifestyle.
Not stupidly rich, but a little bit of richness wouldn't hurt, right?
Exactly. It's
but
just
that is always then in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, you can. So if you can live comfortably with just like $2,000 or so, hey, be my guest, right? And some people, their standard is a little bit higher. So it sounds very esoteric, very hippie-ish kind of, but you don't need much to actually live a freaking amazing life.
And I still like comfort. I still like, to take showers and have hot water. And it's like, people, when I mention van life, or even when I mention meditation, breath work, and things like that, I always seem like I'm a hippie person, and I'm like, far from it. I love my comfort. I love just being in my own thing, but I'm not like much of a hippie person. So it's a bit of a mix. But yeah, definitely, like, the more money you can make comfortably, the better. And I'm never going to spit on money. Like, if I can make more, I'll take more. But there's like a threshold, like I don't want to dive under a certain amount just to be comfortable. But the more you can make, obviously, like, I'm never going to say no to being more successful on that end.
Now, just quickly on that one, because I could see people being very interested in how that may look like. So you're a bodybuilder. and also then an online coach. How is it possible to travel in a van around countries when you don't have a clear gym membership and also not always an internet connection?
Yeah, so internet is pretty simple because now you can get like antennas and routers that you can get access to. Like, as long as you're in the first world country, even in like, to be fair, when I traveled Vietnam, I had 4G connection on top of like rice fields in the middle of nowhere. So connection, never too much of an issue. And if I know
have the
that
feeling that the only place where it's very bad, it's in Germany. And actually, if you look at it statistically, Germany is one of the worst places in Europe when it comes to technological innovation around internet connection and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that sucks. But again, like I can focus my work on like Monday through Friday. And if I know that I'm going to want to be like in a national park or in the wild during the weekend, I know that I don't have work to do. So I can always just make sure that I have good connection the first 5 days of the week. And when it comes to bodybuilding, I just made a presentation on the member site called Traveling in Bodybuilding. And that is for if you're traveling for work often, if you're traveling for vacation, or if you're traveling as a lifestyle, like I'm just going to be doing pretty much. There are a few rules that you can follow in terms of like, hey, make sure you match your reps in reserve, make sure you match the exercise patterns week to week. So if you don't have access to a squat rack, but you have a Smith machine, you can do a Smith machine squats. If you don't have a Smith machine, you can do like a hack squat or a leg press. Like there's always a way to make things work. And I'm at this point where I'm like, am I going to lose 10% of optimal work because I'm not training in the same gym? Yes. But will it fulfill me on other fronts that make it worth for me to lose those 10 optimal %? Absolutely. And I'm happy for that. And I know that I can grow even training in different gyms week to week even. So it's not too big of a trouble for me. For someone who's more anal and OCD, maybe it'll be different. But again, the beauty of having a van and being anywhere you want, it's like if I find a gym that I'm comfortable in a location that I'm comfortable in, I can stay for 3 months if I want to. That's not a problem because I get to live there for like whenever, like how long I want.
Unless COVID.
Yeah.
Touch wood. Sorry, I shouldn't have even said it. I was just like, this is the thing that came to mind.
Anyways.
Could just screw over all the plans. It's awful. But that's really cool to hear about like what you want to achieve in the off season and kind of where you're going to go. And you're sticking with Revive Stronger. And we're going to have a business meeting after this. So we're obviously kind of picking all that up and hoping we're going to grow as a team even more than ever. Easier when we're not all in prep. What did you say?
I have to pee though.
Yeah, I do need to pee as well. My peeing frequency has your guy. Well, actually, Jess, maybe not Pascal yet because I know you're still kind of dieting. Not dieting. You're at maintenance. Jess is obviously you're in a surplus now. Are you peeing less?
Oh, so much less. It went from like pee week in Vegas. I was peeing so much, and now I'm like. It's regular. It's back to regular. And it feels so good to actually not pee like every 5 seconds and having to find a bathroom everywhere. Like, oh, it's so annoying.
I couldn't walk Ada without, I was like, I have to go to the loo first. Otherwise I might have to pee on this 30-minute walk. It's like ridiculous.
Even yesterday, I went to see Spider-Man and it was like 2 hours and a half in the theater. And I'm like, how am I going to cope with that? Like, I'm going to have to stop midway through the movie. And what if I miss something important? So I made sure that I haven't had any liquids for like 3 hours before. And it actually went fine.
2 weeks before the show, I went to go and see James Bond with Katie. And it was 2.5 hours long. I think I went to the loo like 4 times. And it was so annoying.
That's the worst part of prep. And I made a story like years ago in 2019, like half of my steps when I'm on prep are done just going to the bathroom and back to my room or wherever, just looking for one because I pee so much.
I think unfortunately I'm cursed with I don't know if it's a small bladder or what. Like the first person I'd spoken to I could relate to was Mike. He literally said, like, I asked him about peeing. He was like, I pee a lot anyway. And I'm like, I pee more than most people. Like I always need to pee. I won't sleep through a night. Like it's not going to happen. I'm going to have to get up and pee. So, but it's definitely reduced. And it's good to hear that yours is reduced as well, which I think just with storing it like the water's being stored more and we're not overcompensating for hunger with drinking more and trying to fill a hole that is no longer there as much.
Yeah, I think that plays a huge role. And I think it also depends who you compare yourself to, because I live with my grandparents who are 85 and 86 years old, and like they barely drink throughout the day, and they see me drink liters and liters of water, and they're like, you're going to damage your kidneys. Like, this is really bad. And I pee all the time. And even my mom, she's like, you pee too much. And I'm like, what's too much? Like, I just pee what I need to pee. Like, I don't know.
When I was doing my social work, so in Germany, there was a time where you needed to actually decide between military work or social work. And while I was doing that, I was working in a facility for people with diseases, with handicaps and all that kind of stuff. And there was this young guy. He was kind of basically a little bit younger than I was, and he had gastrointestinal cancer when he was very, very young, and that's why he actually was always wearing a kind of a plastic bag underneath his t-shirt, where then his poop actually went in, right? And something like that. We need to have actually like an artificial bladder that we don't need to go to the toilet that often, and we just like put even a bigger bladder out there so that we can just like leave it there and just go to the toilet like once per day or so.
Or just do like surgeons and wear like a diaper when they have like really long surgeries. Just
is that what they do?
Yeah, when they have like 20 plus hour surgeries, like, and they can't leave the room because you have to get like scrubbed and everything. They wear diapers because that's just like.
Damn, I didn't know that.
When I had my hip surgery, I was drinking a lot. Apparently, I didn't know about this, right? But they told me that they needed to put a kind of what was it again? Just something up my penis, and then they just
catheter or something.
Pardon?
A catheter? I don't know.
Yeah, something like that, and then they just like sucked it out of my bladder the entire time. But I mean, I didn't even, right? So
yeah.
You weren't sore after the surgery, like, oh, this stings.
No. Everything was all right. I mean, all right.
As much as it can.
Yeah.
Should we wrap up?
Yeah.
Did we come to? Do you feel like you covered everything you wanted to cover, Jess, in terms of how the recovery phase is going? Third one, best yet. Obviously, you mentioned, and I mentioned this, and it just frustrates me. I see it so often where people are like trumpeting that you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. It's like everyone's going to be learning every time, and there's no perfect scenario to this. So I'm glad you explained kind of where you're at, and we're actually very similar. It's like a month, and we're both roughly just about 5% above like our peaked weight, which is quite cool. And we're probably quite similar in that post-show phase of being on holiday actually kind of helped us to actually allow us to kind of relax and gain, which is good.
And if anyone's in Vegas, you have to go to House a Go-Go and you have to get the chicken waffles because that is the best thing I've ever eaten in my entire life.
I thought it's a burger with a sausage sticking out.
No, that's, chicken waffle and apple fritters. Apple fritter, I'm so happy that I introduced you to apple fritter because that was so good.
So it is fried, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm really not a fan of fried stuff, to be honest.
You are when you eat this.
I don't think I am, though, because I really, to me at least, it could be that their way of frying things is completely different, but I have the feeling that everything that is fried always tastes the same. It's just that frying fat.
This wasn't like oily or anything. This was out of this world. It was so good. And I'm not too big on fried food as well. Like I never really eat them. But this was just, we have to make this like, we are set now. Like this is a monthly thing. So whenever we get to meet in London next year, we're going to go for chicken waffle.
We have to find somewhere. There's duck and waffle. People in London will know duck and waffle. I don't remember having good memories of that, though.
I found places already. Like, I've done my research.
Steve, I've never...
need the maple syrup.
I've never told you,
yes.
And I've been over to the UK, like, quite a lot. I never had fish and chips. I'm sorry.
Oh, what a shame.
You need to try it. It is
sorry.
but you want to have it somewhere good.
Yeah.
Like in Cornwall or something.
I'm sorry
Like
that I'm
proper- the
disappointing
chips for me are
you
the
and
best part.
every UK listener now. Yeah, sorry for the disappointment. I never had sufficient chips.
It's so good. I love it.
Cool.
What's the quintessential German food?
I think many people think it's schnitzel or so, something Bavarian cuisine, but it is very much mixed, because you have in the northern part of Germany, it's definitely something fishy with potatoes. In the southern part of Germany, it is maybe then something like schnitzel or Weisswurst or something like that. And yeah, I couldn't really pinpoint to one specific meal of like, this is it. But if you ask someone from outside of Germany, it's probably then like schnitzel and then with lederhosen on and all that kind of stuff, which definitely isn't German. I mean, it is German, but it's not representative that entire Germany is like that. And I think that US citizens who have never been to Germany think that this is proper German.
I haven't had any Leberkuchen yet. I need to actually source some, but it will happen at some point.
I mean, I could always be your source.
To be fair, they're in like every supermarket here.
Also, the chocolatey ones?
I think so.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
All right.
I think so, anyway. But yeah, you're going to wrap up.
Oh, yeah. So, guys. Oh, no, we can... Jess, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let Jess wrap.
Yeah. I want to wrap it up and ask a question, because I'm the one answering the questions on YouTube every time. So I'm going to ask a question to people. Have you tried chicken waffle before? And what did you think of it? And then thank you so much for listening to us and rambling. We are coming with really cool things next year. So make sure to stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like. Make sure to leave a comment to help us with the algorithm. And we will speak to you guys very soon.
Jess did a much better job than we normally do. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.